Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. I know you've got my gorgeous, gorgeous face. And things are going to be a little bit different this week. Basically, because this book wasn't quite what I expected it to be, and I kind of just want to ramble. I don't have a script, I've got my notes, but I want to chat about it, because I don't think me doing a full scripted video for this would make any difference, so I figured I might as well just have a little chat. And basically, I picked up Out There Screaming, compiled by Jordan Peele because it advertised itself as a collection of black horror. And I am doing my read up to Halloween, so I figured a huge collection of short stories that are all horror is great. I had high hopes, especially I started the year off with the Chinese horror collection, and it is still one of my favorite things I've read this year. And then I started reading, and the issue is, apart from maybe the last one, I didn't dislike any of the stories that are in here, but horror is a wide genre, and a lot of things can technically fit into it. Like I said that Lapvona probably doesn't fit into the horror genre, but other people would argue that. And I'm sure a lot of these could fit into that. Like the first one is a very easygoing kind of horror. I wasn't terrified, but I don't expect that a lot of the time, especially with short stories. It is a lot harder to really, really unnerve you because you just don't have the time to build that sort of thing up. Also, even though I wash my hands, they still smell of garlic because I've been doing cooking today. So if I keep going whenever I lift my hands, it's because I stinky of garlic. I don't know why I phrased it like that, but if you can see me looking over here, this is where I've got my notes. And the thing is, I think what really annoyed me, like I said, is that so much of these stories are good stories. If this had just been a short story collection with maybe an air on the spooky side, something to do with like dark fiction, I guess, but some of these just aren't horror. Like, I just didn't feel that creeping factor. A lot of these contain stuff to do with spirituality, the supernatural. They have darker, kind of spooky themes, but they're not horror, I wouldn't say. So the first book, which is Reckless Eyeballing by N.K. Jemisin, I would say definitely does fit into the genre. We have a cop who has started seeing eyeballs on cars where the front headlights would be, and he takes it as this sign that whoever has these eyeballs, there's something wrong with their car. And the further it goes in, the more it is an exploration of the hypocrisy with certain cops, with the idea of, well, I'm so intent on catching these bad people, but he's doing awful things to them. He's beating people up, he is assaulting so many people, he's threatening them. He's a bad guy, but he's so intent on saying, well, I'm the good guy because I can see these eyes and I've been given this gift. And it is really creepy. There's this horrible scene, and I mean that affectionately, because it's a great scene for horror, where the eyeballs are multiplying in various places, and he gets a cut on his, I believe, his forearm. It's certainly on his arm, and an eyeball grows out of it, and that was rancid. That was purely rancid. That was great. I really, really enjoyed that one, and that one definitely, I was like, that's a cool way to start it, and I really liked the voice of it. It had this old vibe to it, not like old fiction. It felt like, how did I describe it? Yeah, it was kind of sounded old and wise. There's a very human voice to a lot of these stories. A lot of it is written, like, there are a lot of stories written with certain dialects and just a lot of colloquialisms and things like that, and it all feels very natural. I really enjoy the way that's done. That is something that I'm obviously not going to get in a lot of fiction, because I don't have enough black fiction on my shelf, and I just haven't read it. Like, I don't tend to read intentionally like that, I'm going to be honest. I just pick a book that I like, and whoever's the author is the author. But reading a lot like this, I was really enjoying. There was one later on, which it's called like La Sirène, I think it's called. If I can find it. Is it before that? Yeah. Which had this old school folk tale vibe to it, and that was another one that I could definitely say fit into horror. A lot of lighter, and not much of this is very dark and gory or anything, but that really fit into this like folk tale or like a campfire story or something like that. And there was a lot of Jamaican dialect in there, and it works so well, it works so nicely. And if I'm using the wrong phrasing there with dialect or anything, forgive me, I'm not an expert. But as I was going through, I was like steadily going, but I'm not scared. I'm not going, oh. Because so much of short stories with horror, that is just that feeling. If I read a Junji Ito collection, I read that Chinese horror collection at the beginning of the year, most of it is just turned on making you go, oh. There was the one in the Chinese horror with the two people stuck in that apartment with the cell phone, and that one's really stuck with me. Or the one with the hot pot with the spirits and stuff, those still stick with me. Most of the stories in there still stick with me. I don't think many of these will. I think La Sirène will, and the second to last one, I think it was, with the, get my cable off there. Oh, actually, yeah, that one as well. Yeah, the second to last one, and that isn't the one I was thinking of. Oh, actually, yeah, there were a few close to the end, which I will definitely still be thinking of if I come upon them. What was the one I was thinking of? Oh, A Bird Sings by the Etching Tree by Nicole D. Sconiers. I think that's how you say her name. That one is going to be one that I think about. But that wasn't horror. It was ghosts. And it was spooky. But it's like there's this fine line with horror, I think, where something can be supernatural, but that doesn't make it horror. And I think a lot of this falls into spiritual and supernatural, but it doesn't fall into horror for me. And I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself all the time, but this is what happens when I don't script. So, like, Iron Tooth was the next one by Rebecca Rowanhorse. There was only one that I didn't really write any notes on, and it was still a good story. I just didn't really find anything of note in there. But I was really getting into it. There's this creepy doll thing going on, and I clicked and there was nice twists. But I was like, but I'm not feeling. I had a couple of shudder moments, I think. And then I was just going through and going, okay, these are interesting stories. Like Invasion of the Baby Snatchers, interesting story, and definitely could be horror, I guess, in terms of talking about women's bodies and the way that they're used. But I didn't no, I think if I read because I said I would read a full book of that, and I think I would call that horror. I just wasn't feeling anything with it, with the collection on the whole. Like, we moved to like the other one, which could be a great horror story, but I just didn't vibe with it. The voice wasn't really working very well, and a lot of the imagery was very in your face, but not in like a blood, gore, viscera kind of in your face, in just like there's a picture of a heart on her, or a video of a heart on a screen. She drops her phone and there's a cut through the screen, and I'm just like, come on, that felt very flat. Later on, we have The Rider by Tananarive Diu, and it's with two women during the 60s, civil unrest, all that kind of thing. I don't think that's the right word. It's fine. You know what I'm talking about. They're taking a bus to go to a large-scale protest with some new group that's opened up, and the horror seemed like it was going to really ramp up with this one when they're taking the driver takes them on a wrong turn, and someone or something gets on the bus with them, and there is tension in it, and it's high, but it doesn't feel like horror. It just feels spooky. It just feels kind of supernatural. But again, so much of this is that, and I'm just like, scare me, make me uncomfortable, disgust me, do something more. And this is so many of these stories. Like, I loved that there was some good creeping tension in. Did my screen just flicker? I have OBS open there because I'm using my back camera, and interesting. But there was some good creeping tension, but this is where I noticed that I was like, I haven't had anything properly unnerve me. Like, we've got good tension, we've got good spirits and spook and stuff, and some scenes that made me go, ugh, like the eye in the arm, and during the second story with the creepy dolls and stuff, a girl gets a knitting needle stabbed into, I think, into her back, and that made me go, oh, but I'm just like, give me something. So much of this just felt flat to me. And so the Aesthete by Justin C. Key was one that I was like, oh, this could have been horror. We have these things called like art pieces, and they're basically like robots. Basically, they are engineered human beings, and they're constantly live streaming. They have these full lives, but there are things that are held back for them, and it's a lot that could be to do with civil rights is the word I was trying to think of, not civil unrest, but anyway, there's a lot of parallels with this and civil rights, with the way that women's bodies are treated, because there's a lot to do with reproduction within it. And yet I'm going, this is a great story, love it, but where's the horror? I want to make my skin crawl. If I go into a horror collection, I want to have moments where I close the book for a second and go, oh my god, either because something is disgusting, like I did with Mayfly during that scene on the bus, I shut the book, or I remember during How to Sell a Haunted House, during some of the final scenes with that, the really high tension horror stuff with that little caca horrible little doll, but he's a puppet rather, that frightened me. It got under my skin. I felt uncomfy, so I closed it and I was like, no, I need a minute. But nothing in this collection made me go, I need a minute, just hang on. And what's annoying is that, like I say, none of these are bad. Like, Pressure by Ezra Clayton Daniels was a lot of really cool motifs and a lot of family dynamic stuff, and I thought that was really interesting, talking about being the one mixed race person in a family. And so we have 3 cousins. There's one guy who is a bit of a racist and probably a homophobe as well, given that we also have a gay cousin and we have a mixed race cousin, and talking about the dynamics with that and the pressure that's building up between them, really visualized by not only the pressure in one of them's ears because he's just been on a long flight, but also things keep going pop and bang, and it's just like the family dynamic, and it works really well as a story. Is it horror? Is it bollocks? Like, I'm just like, ugh. Hang on, what was next? Yeah, so the next one I will say, I can't pronounce this author's name. I'm going to put it on screen, but the story's called Dark Home. And I don't know if it's Neddy or Nnedi Okorafor. And this was so good, talking about, I want to say Nigerian, I think it was. The Igbo, a lot of stuff to do with them. And what's it called? The Ajofia, which is like this haunting spiritual thing to do with death, I think, and there's a lot to do with gender dynamics in this, and that, I think this is a good horror story. I think it would have been scary if I understood a bit more about it. I think we could have spent a bit more time making it clear what's going on, because not everybody's going to know what this is. And I certainly didn't. And I got some spook out of it. But I had to really look up. Hello, phone. You are vibrating. Let me just check if that's a message. So yeah, like, I had to look it up, because while it was described, I felt like it could have been given a bit more detail, because I looked it up and oh my god, that thing is terrifying. Some of these scenes, the idea of coming across that, haunting. And then I started getting towards the end, I think. We're moving towards the end. Yeah, as we started moving towards the end, we were getting better with the horror stuff, but not everything. So we had Flicker by L.D. Lewis, and that felt like horror. That felt like spooky. The moment, so we have 3 sets of darkness that just happen in the world, and it's got the idea of like simulation theory and things like that, and we have a short amount of darkness. I think it lasts for 30 seconds, and then it lasts for 3 minutes, and then I think it lasts for like a few hours or something. And the sequence with the 3 minutes where they're all trapped, there's 3 people trapped in a flat, that was so good. That felt like horror. That made my skin crawl. And then when the lights back up and they see this thing in their house, and they don't know where these things are, and the scene with the bear later on with the voice of her friend, oh, that stuff always spooks me. Voices with things like mimicry. I love mimicry, and in horror and gothic stuff, anything like that with mimicry, doppelgangers, be that vocally, physically, anything like that, that will get me. I love mimicry and doppelgangers. I think it's like a natural thing. Uncanny Valley stuff as well, and I think they fall into very similar categories, because it's like the idea of something being human, but you know it's just a bit wrong, which is why I think a lot of AI stuff can work really well in horror now, especially now that we're seeing what AI can be. Like, if you look at some of the AI stuff on Facebook, if you know what you're looking for, then you go, well, that's obviously AI. But if you don't really know what AI is, that's why a lot of people fall for it, because if you're not thinking about it, and it's just like, that is really Uncanny Valley stuff. And you see all these like AI like actors, models, musicians and stuff, and it just makes my skin crawl, because it's just like, that's not a human being, stop it. And the way that people talk about Chat GPT like it's their friend, like, I'm not going to get into this, but like that lass who was like sexually harassing her psychiatrist and said that she was a victim, but Kendra, where she's like, oh, this is chat, first of all, you're not a streamer, stop calling it that. Second of all, stop calling it Henry. It's not alive. It's code. It's just telling you what you want to... Oh! It bugs me and it freaks me out. Oh, no, I was getting mixed up when I said earlier that it was La Sirène with the Jamaican dialect. I'm getting mixed up. That was... The one I was thinking of was The Most Strongest Obey a Woman of All... Sorry. The Most Strongest Obey a Woman of the World by Nalo Mopkinson. That was the one with the very thick Jamaican dialect, and I love that. I love, because it enriches everything. That was definitely, that had some good, nasty horror moments. I would love to see this as a graphic novel. I think that would work really well. I'm not saying this worked badly here. I'm just saying I want more from it. I really like that. They do some really squelchy writing, and I think that disgusted me, and that falls into horror very well. Now we have A Grief of the Dead by Rion Amilcar Scott. This one is not horror in the fear-inducing sense, but more in the sort of tragedy. It's a real life situation kind of horror. There is some supernatural elements in there as well. We have basically like zombies and not hordes, more individual and far more terrifying, I think, in the personal sense. And basically he loses his brother in a mass shooting. He's already lost his parents previously and his uncle. Like, he's had a lot of tragedy in his life, but his brother is his twin. And he feels like there is this physical connection that got severed. There is something, he can't hear his spirit. There's nothing there for him anymore. And he gets so far gone that he tries to plan another mass shooting, not with him as the gunman, but he basically tries to hire somebody else to perform a mass shooting so he can be shot in exactly the same way as his brother, so he can feel the same. Because he is really far gone with his mental health. His brother was shot in the head and the chest, and he wants to be shot in exactly the same places so he can be perfectly the same as his brother again, because they were identical twins. And this was that heartbreak tragedy, and there's a scene towards the end where it doesn't go through. The mass shooting doesn't happen. He gets scammed out of a fair amount of money, but he is reunited with his brother, who has been reanimated in a way. And yeah, this is that tragedy kind of horror where rather than being left scared, you're left kind of just like empty. And I think that's really affected. It's like being horrified doesn't necessarily mean fear. It can be disgust, and I think anguish is part of that, and I think that's what I felt at the end of this. So it might not be horror in a traditional sense, but I think it does fall into that. You look at a lot of, this isn't gothic, but you look at a lot of gothic horror, and a lot of that falls into more sort of tragedy and that kind of thing. I spoke earlier about A Bird Sings by the Etching Tree by Nicole de Sconia's, unsure. Now this was fun. It was like vengeful spirits. It was, and they're trapped in like woodland by a road with a lot of crashes, and it seems like a lot of the crashes are caused by these two, in a revenge kind of way. It's a cool revenge story. It's not horror though. Again, really fun short story, really fun to play with spirits and the supernatural, but just because something is supernatural does not necessarily make it horror. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that. Horror is more than just supernatural and spirits. Some people are naturally, I think, because they are so scared of the idea of ghosts, that makes it horror. And I'm not saying that's the case for this author. I'm just saying in general, I think a lot of people believe, oh, this is horror because I'm scared of it. It's like, no, I could write a story about spiders. It was the first scary thing I thought of. But if I just write that spiders exist, and it's like spiders on a grand day out, doing some naughty things, that's only horror to people who don't like spiders. And while you could say that's true of many fears, you can have somebody who has no fear of clowns, but that doesn't make it any less of a horror story. It is designed to scare you. And this just isn't. But it's a great story. Oh, I think this might be my favourite of the collection, which is Your Happy Place by Terence Taylor. This, I don't want to say this because I know it's kind of like trite, but it's very Black Mirror, and the twist really caught me off guard. So he wakes up, I'm sorry, I'm just using this to like pin my page down so I can see my notes, and he wakes from a nightmare, and I wish I'd put the book back because it was from the library, and we're given certain lines, and it's like, okay, cool, he's just woken from a nightmare. And then we get into this story where he's working in a prison, He's basically doing work so he doesn't have to serve a sentence. I believe it was drug charges for him. And he's taking other prisoners to and from a training centre, which is basically kind of Clockwork Orange style reform. And as it goes through, he figures out ways to stop it. And yet and he does. And yet the story continues. And it's just like, like, there is this scene where he actually finds out what they're doing, and they're basically using whichever amendment it is that basically allows slave labour if it is prisoners. And you know that episode of Doctor Who with Sarah Jane and I can't remember his name, Giles from Buffy and Uther in Merlin, with them, and there's that scene where all the kids are at the computers just tapping away. It's like that, but instead they're just doing sewing. They're making garments, and they're all doing it at exactly the same time, doing exactly the same step, but with a bunch of different clothes. And that, again, I think that's a similar kind of uncanny kind of thing, because it's like it's human, but it's not. And that really just like, that frightened me as a kid. I don't like that. And it's like that thing of somebody else having control. And we get this moment where he says the phrase, either him or his wife says, the nightmare was finally over. But there was still plenty more of this story to go. So it was like, oh, wait, what's happening? And then we find out that he is in his happy place. This is not the first time where he has lived out this idea of finding out what's going on with this doctor and the Clockwork Orange style therapy, the slave labour, and he stopped it in his happy place. But it's not real. He is actually one of the people. It actually seems like he might be the only one, like he's the test subject, but he's had to do this over and over and over again with this doctor. And there was a moment earlier on where it's like everyone gets to live out their personal fantasy, but I was still like, it didn't clock to me that was what was going on. And when he gets reset, sent back to his happy place, it is the first two lines of the book repeated. He's basically woken up from that nightmare again, and he can't remember what the nightmare even was. And I was just like, that fucked with me. And that was great horror. There was some real tension in there, and the twist in it, and just everything. It made me, is that out of the frame? Yeah. It made me uncomfortable. It gave me the spooks. But just overall, I think the way the storytelling was done, I kind of didn't mind that it wasn't the scariest thing in the world. The next story is Hide and Seek. I'm not reviewing all of them here, but the next story is Hide and Seek by P. Djeli Clark. Sorry if that's not how you say that. Djeli with some accents again. It'll be on the screen. It had a banger opener. It was scary. This was a horror story. This was one of the best of the collection as well. It was very close between this and the last one with Your Happy Place. Like, there's some visceral, nasty imagery. There's some horrible, horrible tension. They're using quite young kids as the protagonists here to really emphasize the fear. They have to keep hiding from their mother. And sometimes it's a drill, sometimes it's not, for the reason they have to hide. And it's got use of magic, and while on the nose, it is it's a great addiction allegory. I mean, it's not even really an allegory. She has an addiction, just not to actual drugs. And the magic she's addicted to is called junk. So, not like the sort of most subtle allegory. But it works well. The last story was bollocks. I'm sorry. all of the other stories were really good stories, and even if some of them didn't frighten me or disgust me, they weren't really horror. The last story, Origin Story by Tochi Onyebuchi, was a script for some reason. And listen, if somebody likes reading scripts, maybe they would get something out of it. But I fucking hate reading scripts. And I just mean like as a medium. I like studying them. I liked acting when I was younger. I did drama and stuff. I don't like sitting and reading them as a story. This is a short story collection. Any of the messaging that was in there, and the messaging was good. I liked what they were doing with it, but like it was dry and dull because it is a script. It's a short story collection. Give me a short story. It's just a weird choice of form. And if this collection ended on either of the two stories I've spoken about previously, with either Hide and Seek or Your Happy Place, it would have ended on such a banger. Instead, I closed the book and I was like, oh, that's what you ended with? Oh my god. But yeah, like I said, it was an interesting collection because I didn't have a bad time reading it, but I felt wanting a lot of the time. I just wish there was more of an emphasis on horror, because don't get me wrong, even in that Chinese horror collection, I'm sure there were a couple which weren't like super spooky, scary, anything like that. They felt like good stories but not horror. I can't remember exactly by now because it's been nearly a year, but so many of these I was like, that's kind of spooky, it's got some supernatural elements. I want to feel horrified. I want to feel disgusted. I want to feel scared. I want to feel like when I'm looking away from this page, I want to look over my shoulder. I want something, and I just wasn't feeling it. So, unfortunately, this might have been a bit of a dud for me. I was just disappointed by it, I think. But it's annoying because, like, I can't be disappointed by any of the stories or the writers, apart from that last one, because they weren't writing bad stories. But why was this collection labelled as a horror collection? Not enough of it was actually scary. But next week, we are looking at Silverweed Road, which I think is meant to be an actual horror book. Give me a second to find it. So we have here Silverweed Road by Simon Crook. And, I mean, it literally has the word horror on the front, so that usually gives you a good sign. Welcome to Silverweed Road, a once quiet suburban street where nothing is quite as it seems. As the residents vanish one by one, a sinister mystery slowly unpeels, lurking in the woods at the road's dead end. In this chilling collection of twisted tales where foxes prowl, as in like werewolves, where foxes prowl, a swimming pool turns predatory, and a darts player makes a deal with the devil himself. Come take a walk through suburban hell. The neighbours are dying to meet you. So this seems like it might be anthology style, but all focused around this one, road, which is very interesting. Let me just see. Okay, it doesn't seem like there's a contents page, but there is, like, each of the chapters is named, and they are named in a similar kind of way I would expect short stories to be, so that's very interesting. I might get a good short story collection and get sort of vindicated, I guess. Not vindicated. A little bit of retribution. No, I can't think of the right word. I will be able to feel fulfilled after this week's. We don't have too many more now until actual Halloween. I think we have this one and 3 after. Yeah? Yeah. And then I will do like a little roundup video just to go over what we looked at this Halloween. And I will probably just do it like this. Just a little chat. But yeah. Let me know if you have any good short story collections that are horror. Give me some nasty, gross horror. Give me some good black horror. Because, unfortunately, I was left wanting by Jordan Peele giving me this. And there are good authors in there. The first author in there is N.K. Jemisin. I'm not being given bad authors. I'm just not being given scares. So, yeah. Let me know that. And just, as always, let me know what you've been reading recently. And, yeah. Feel free to like. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to ring that notification bell, all the cringe I'm supposed to ask you to do at the end of my videos. But most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourself. Right.